I did not.
So I'm.
Oh, wait, we have a couple yesterday.
That's next time. It's been a long time since she's recorded.
That's great.
Think so? She's like, you gotta remove it.
Oh, good.
Calling.
Well, there was a lot of candor transpiring. I need to knock that out.
Scared me.
Apologize. Welcome to the meeting of the Ohio Elections Commission opening on October 17th. We do apologize about our short delay starting at 10:08 a.m. here. We are going to change the order of events to be respectful to a few of the parties in the room. But we're going to start first with the roll call. Bill, would you mind?
Mr. Lyle.
Present.
Mr. Knight.
Here.
Mr. Caraway.
Present.
Mr. Folke.
Here.
Mr. Kirschner.
Present.
Ms. Davis.
Here.
Vice Chair Hagan.
Present.
Ms. Tavares, Chair Tavares is absent. She had announced previously that she would not be present. Mr. Folke is here in her place. As the statutes obligate us to now bring in the alternate member. And so everyone is here, Madam Chair.
Very good. I appreciate that. Full committee today. And our
Curious if there is, I'm sorry, I'm curious if there is any motion concerning Ms. Tavares.
I make a motion. A motion has been recognized. I assume that motion is to excuse her absentia
Yes.
for Chair Tavares and has been seconded. Seeing the motion seconded, do I have an affirmative vote from the committee?
Yes.
Aye. Okay, all in favor, that is 7 to 0. I apologize, I'm a little rusty, everyone. Okay. All right, I'm going to take a liberty, Phil. I do apologize. I was just made aware by one of my staff members outside of the Elections Commission, not related to the Elections Commission, that there is an active or recently active shooter situation in Painesville area in the schools. So for those who may appreciate joining me in prayer, I'd ask you to do so this time. If not, maybe pause and just take a moment. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we enter your gate always with praise, but we do come to you sober-hearted, knowing that there is a situation that any one of us near or engaged to would be at complete pause. And so we take this moment of pause, Lord, just to seek you to intervene for those who are experiencing extreme hurt, harm, danger, and walking through the unknown. We pray for the families that may be fleeing to the site. We pray for the children and the faculty and the staff who may be experiencing a little bit of hell on earth. And God, we ask for you to be ever present in that equation, that there would be a stillness and calmness in hearts and minds that would transcend all understanding, but that you'd be wholly present for those who may be hurting. God, we pray that there will not have been any fatalities when we turn on the news. And if there are children or faculty or administrators who have been harmed in any way, God, we pray that you would get them quickly to safety. Pray for the law enforcement personnel and all involved. Pray if there were any SRO officers on the ground that they acted swiftly and intervened as efficiently as they could. God, we know that these things come with immense burden and implication for all, and we just pray for the entire equation. God, is out of our control. We are cities away, but we know that you are present and able in any and every circumstance. So we just call you to be wholly present in the aftermath and duration of what this might mean for families and the community, and even officials in those surrounding areas, that they might be leaders that we can count on and a community that bands together. We pray for peace again that passes all understanding, and we pray for comfort. And just that these children and these teachers and these administrators would be held by you and comforted by you, and that people would seek to be there for them and to get them where they need to go so that they can heal. Lord, we hand all things to you, knowing that you are in control, even when things feel out of control. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Thank you for indulging me in that moment. Moving back to the regular order of the commission, I would like to know if we have any motion in regards to the minutes, if those have been adequately reviewed, and if we have anybody who would like to motion approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, wonderful. Seeing a motion in a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
And I'd like to abstain since I was not at that.
Very good. I appreciate that. So noted abstention. And that will be a 6-0 vote. Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to forego the order temporarily, and we are going to elevate the group recommendation section, $50 fine category, item 3. And it is case number 2024R-303 for commission members following along. That is on page 2, about midway through, because we have a party present. Kelly Gorey, if you're present and you would like to approach us, we would love to have you.
Madam Chair, what case number, please?
Case number, again, it is number 3 under the $50 fine category, case number 2024R-303.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, you see my recommendation, find a violation, impose a fine of $50. My basis for that is that the report was filed, a response was submitted to the commission offering sufficient explanation to the matter. The explanation being that they essentially forgot to file a pre-election report, filed a post-election report that included all the information. But the report was beyond about a 2-week period of late. And so that's essentially the basis for my recommendation to find a violation, impose a $50 fine. Of course, one question I will ask is, Ms. Geary, what your relationship to the committee is, first off. But secondly, if the commission wants to make a different decision than what my recommendation is, I fully understand that.
Phil, should we have her sworn?
Yeah, you need to be sworn.
Sure. I do.
Because you're not the listed treasurer.
I am not.
Here, Jeffrey Rich. What's your relationship to the committee?
So I am his employee. Unfortunately, he is out of state today because his wife had an injury and was unable to fly. So I am here in his stead. But beyond what's in the affidavit, obviously, I don't have any personal knowledge of anything outside of the affidavit or the filings that you already have.
Okay. Thank you for your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any questions of Ms. Gorey while she's here? Okay, commission. Okay, very good. Is there a motion?
So move.
A second.
Okay, seeing a motion in a second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate your consideration.
Absolutely. Okay, very good. So we are going to return or resume to the normal order of the meeting. So as it relates to preliminary reviews, we are going to call case 2024G-029, obviously first page, second agenda item.
Madam Chair, members, this is a complaint that asserts that the respondent who filed a waiver that was allowed under the statutes based on the office for which the person was running to spend $2,000 or less. And we received a response from the respondent where he indicates that he only used personal funds. And based on this, there was no obligation to submit any campaign finance report. Well, that based on the materials included in the complaint that show the campaign materials that were purchased, I don't believe that explanation is valid. Certainly, you don't have a candidate does not have an obligation to disclose or file any campaign finance report regarding personal expenditures, but these expenditures had to have been for the campaign materials. And so something should have been filed at the County Board of Elections. And so my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $25 per day until the report is filed, but give the respondent the opportunity to have the matter reconsidered. I'll be glad to answer any of the questions that the commission may have.
Are there any questions of the commission members?
Madam Chair, I just have one for Mr. Richter. Mr. Richter, do we have any communication from them at all?
The respondent called on, I think it was Monday, and Chris and I talked about it, and Chris talked to him and explained to him what my recommendation was. I thought that might motivate the individual so he did reach out to the office. We had good service on him. I thought that might be enough to motivate him to go ahead and file some sort of a report, because depending on how much he spent, he may have only been obligated to file a notice essentially with the Board of Elections reflecting that I didn't go over that amount. We may see that issue coming back before us here in a little bit. But nothing, I never received any additional contact from the individual. Don't know if anything was ever done. He never reached back out. So at this point, I'm comfortable with my recommendation. And also I'd like to say, a couple weeks ago, we had a case before us where it wasn't the exact same set of circumstances, but there was an explanation given by a person who was then a candidate that he only did something with personal funds. And my recommendation there was to find a violation. Well, that was because in that particular situation, the letter that was being circulated by the respondent in that case was supportive of another candidate and as he explained, he used his own personal funds to circulate that on behalf of a different candidate. That wouldn't necessarily be considered a campaign expenditure since he did it personally. And there was no reference in the letter to his status as a candidate or to his campaign committee. This is different because if you look at the materials that were included in the complaint that I circulated to everybody, they were campaign materials that were circulated. They were either mailed out or were handed out at the time of the election. So that's the basis for my recommendation. I'll be glad to answer any other questions that the commissioner has.
Are there any other questions of the commissioners? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seeing a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on, we're going to consider case number 2024G-031.
This is a self-referral that the treasurer for the candidate committee submitted, indicating there was a discrepancy in his campaign committee of approximately $345 that he has not been able to identify. It wants to terminate the committee, but can't do so officially because he can't reach a zero balance because of the discrepancy in his campaign account. Currently, there is no money in the campaign account. I believe does indicate that in there the account has been closed. The bank account has been closed. And so they are seeking to have the campaign committee declare terminated. And so my recommendation is to find a violation, impose a fine of $100, and then declare the committee terminated so that they can be resolved of this. They reached out after getting direction from the Office of the Secretary of State concerning how to resolve this matter. So I'll be glad to answer any other questions the commission may have.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
to the Executive Director, Mr. Richter, in regards to the account being closed, do they submit proof showing that the bank account is actually closed, or do we just go on good faith?
I guess you'd say I did it on faith only because he's submitting an affidavit to the commission as part of the complaint process.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
So I guess my question for the executive director is why $100? I recall other cases of this nature where we have either find the amount left in the balance or the amount of the discrepancy. I guess my concern is there's a discrepancy of $345. I mean, if there was some sort of malfeasance, they're 245 to the good and the malfeasance doing my simple math in my head.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering why 100 and not 345 or something different.
I'm in a situation where when I get these types, not just this, but almost any kind of complaint where I have to kind of assess all the facts and circumstances and come up with a recommendation. I don't know that I've got a better explanation than that I felt that was equitable based on my conversation with the treasurer when we discussed the situation and when he'd gone through in terms of trying to figure out where the problem was and come up with the information and not being able to do so before finally reaching out first to the secretary's office and then to our office to get this resolved. And I just felt that $100 was equitable, but I certainly understand your question. And yeah, in the past, there have been times when I've made those kind of recommendations.
Do you think that we are putting ourselves at risk potentially by, creating potential incentive for groups to, file with a certain balance missing and then get fined less than that balance and be able to hide some malfeasance? Is that something we should be concerned about?
Is that possible? I think it's always possible, yes. But I guess I rely on what I would identify as the general situation of persons doing their best to try and be responsible in filing their campaign finance reports. And that's certainly something that I also look into and take into consideration based on the explanations that are given, what the circumstances are, how they've gotten to the point where they're ready to file with the commission to request that the matter be terminated, that the committee be terminated. That may not be a great explanation. And is it possible? Yeah. But again, I think sometimes at least I feel like I can read into what is submitted to us and any discussion that I may have with somebody before we get into that, into a situation where somebody may be using us, as it were. And like I said, it is possible. Yeah, I can't say that's never going to happen.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm prepared to make a motion to accept the recommendation of the executive director.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seeing a motion in a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Okay, we will be moving on now to the group recommendations. First, withdrawn by the Board of Elections was case number 2024R-349.
Yeah. Just mentioning it on the record is sufficient. A matter can be withdrawn from the commission's consideration at any time prior to the commission taking it up. That's the case here. And so just the mere fact that we acknowledge it is good enough to go on from there.
Okay, very good. Moving on to case number 2024R-343. They are asking that we declare the committee terminated and dismiss the complaint as the board has informed us that the candidate has moved to Maryland. So
Yeah, I went back and forth with the campaign finance administrator in Lucas County, which is where this came from. And she informed me that was the case. She also gave me the address for the lady in Maryland. I'm going to try and reach out. I'll have this reach out because we do have other prior matters. But I think this is the most efficient way to deal with this situation at this point, considering that the individual has moved out of the state. Otherwise, we'd be looking at dealing with this on into the future.
Phil, may I ask a question? If we're dismissing it, what would be the point of reaching out to?
We have other matters. If you look at the ICW, there are prior matters that involve this person, trying to see if they can reach some kind of a resolution on those other prior matters that I don't want to just get rid of at this point.
Okay, so if we're reaching out to him on those other matters, would it be relevant to include this in those matters? Perhaps not.
I mean, we could certainly, yeah. Something I can't say, that we couldn't.
Okay, are there any questions of the commission members? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, that motion or that has been motioned and second. Do I have a vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
No.
Oh, say, okay. I apologize.
Presumptive closed by the chair.
I apologize. It sounded like a very collective, orchestrated yay. I apologize. Did not mean to discount your voice, Commissioner Knight, in any way for the record. That motion passes 5-2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the $50 fine category. There's still 2 items there. Would you like to consider them individually or together?
They can be considered together. They're under the same grouping.
Okay, so those items are 21 and 31, case numbers 2024R-298 and 2024R-370.
The reports were filed, a response was submitted, but the reports were filed beyond about a 2-week period of time.
Okay.
So that's my recommendation.
Madam Chair, I'll move the executive director's recommendation.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, multiple seconds, and all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Just making sure. All right. Those carry over 7-0. Moving on to the $250 fine category.
These three matters, 2024 R-234, -236, and 240. The report has been filed in all the matters. No response was submitted, and there were prior cases which the commission has made a finding and imposed a fine that has not been paid. And so my recommendation now is to find a violation, and impose a fine of $250.
Are there any questions of the commission members? If not, is there a motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. The next case to be considered is 2024 R-340.
This is a situation where I've had a conversation with this person before. She's had problems getting her campaign finance reports in order, I guess is the best way of phrasing it. She's now finally gotten herself into compliance, confirmed that with the Board of Elections. And so I'm recommending that we reconsider all the outstanding matters, vacate previous impositions of the per diem fines, consolidate all the matters, find a violation, and impose a fine of $400. I'm doing my best to try and reflect the number of priors involved here. And we'll see that invoked in the next case as well, but that's my recommendation in 2024 R-340.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, do I have a motion? Or any questions?
To adopt the executive director's recommendation.
Okay, all right, great. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. The next cases under consideration are 2024 R-260, 2021 R-470, 2022 R-596, 2023 R-125.
This is a case where I've got notice from the Board of Elections that the reports have finally been filed. After numerous times when it wasn't the commission addressed the cases. I got the understanding from the staff of the Board of Elections, this wasn't necessarily an easy case to resolve, but the reports have now been filed. And so I'm recommending that we reconsider all the outstanding matters, vacate the previous imposition of per diem fines, consolidate all the matters, find a violation, impose a fine of $750, which again reflects the number of prior cases that the commission has addressed as a particular case.
Are there any questions over the cases at hand?
Madam Vice Chair. Question to the executive director. Mr. Richter, has Mr. King, have you successfully reached out to him? I mean, has he been working with us or has it been with the Board of Elections?
Actions.
Okay.
Or he finally got his campaign finance reports all filed.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question also. For Mr. Richter, under the explanation, he says, when the reconsidered matter was originally decided, the candidate states that he has no responsibility for campaign finance filings, as he relies on his treasurer for compliance.
Yes, that was that. We also got a response from the treasurer that, kind of explained some of, I think, some of the difficulty they had putting things together. But yes, that was his response, and I didn't want to not share it with you all.
Well, I appreciate it, but does he understand he has a responsibility?
I have not talked to him, so I can't say that. But from talking to the staff of the Board of Elections, he may not necessarily appreciate that fully.
So I just, that it caught me when I was going through these the other day. I was taken a little back by the culpability there, or lack of.
I can't say I disagree with your general perception of the situation.
All right, just wanted to have it. Thank you.
Very good. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion? Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, great. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor or all opposed? I apologize. Seeing none, that motion carries 7-0. Okay, moving on to the $25 a day with reconsideration option. That will include cases 2024R-320 and 2024R-331.
This is the first time before the commission for these individuals. The report has not yet been filed. That was confirmed by the Board of Elections. And so my recommendation is to find a violation, impose a fine of $25 per day to give the individuals the opportunity to have the matter reconsidered. I will briefly add, so we can hopefully move forward more quickly, the remaining recommendations on the group recommendations before we get to the reconsiderations. The difference in recommendation is all based on the number of prior times individuals have been before the commission. You know, this is these folks are the first time. The next grouping is second, third, et cetera. And so I'll be glad to answer any other questions that the commission may have on those other matters. But I don't want to bore everybody with long explanations that may not necessarily be any more indicative of where we are.
We love,
Although I will
we love
also
it.
add, Mr. Caraway and I have had a good meeting the other day. And he and I are beginning the process of kind of working through some of these issues on a more, hopefully on a more permanent basis.
Excellent. Music to my ears. You guys are doing a great job.
Well, we're working on it, so.
All right. Good deal. All right. So is there a motion as relates to,
So moved,
320
Madam
and
Chair.
320? Great. Okay, wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, this passed 7-0. Moving on then to cases 2024R-277, 2024R-280, 2024R-287, and 2024R-302. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, great. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. All
All opposed? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. Moving on to cases number 2024R-262, -275, and -344. Are there any questions?
Assuming the reconsideration option with payment of $250 for this,
Oh. That's what you
or
get.
is reconsideration option 250 term?
I think that's a presidential debate term. That's like some type of group that's been formed, option 250. You gotta watch out for that.
Yes, that's what's payment of.
That political platform?
If you vote for this, it will be your political platform.
I'm sorry, that should have been.
He needed to
the
fit it
250
all in one.
Stricken, yeah, the 250 should have been stricken. I apologize.
Good eye,
So.
Commissioner Knight.
What is the
I keep running a spell check on this and that number comes back as being a problem. And that's no real good explanation because I should still notice it.
You know,
There isn't anything spelled wrong. I mean,
That's another-
But I unfortunately rely on,
Okay.
I unfortunately rely on word editor,
Oh,
which
is
has
it?
like shown itself to be very.
All right. Phil's a human. All right.
It's like a mess. Yeah.
All right, so
Anyway, so what is the recommendation?
$6,850 plus $25 per day with the reconsideration option, period. End of sentence, nothing further.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
are there any questions on that recommendation as stated, not written?
And Mr. Richter, I assume that none of these three individuals have acknowledged to the Elections Commission.
Nope.
I move to adopt the executive director's recommendation, striking the 250 reference.
Great, appreciate that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next grouping is the $27,400 plus $100 a day with reconsideration, option 250. I'm assuming we're also striking that.
Striking the
If
250.
whomever makes the motion would do such as Commissioner Kirschner did, we'd be appreciated. But are there any questions otherwise? Okay, seeing no questions, is there a motion?
I move to accept the executive director's recommendation to impose a fine of $27,400 plus $100 a day with reconsideration option.
Some second.
All right, you're just excluding the.
He's excluding the word, the number 250.
Okay, you're adopting a.
So I did not mention that number. Anything else, pass option.
All right, good. Okay, good deal. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Yeah, Mr. Lyle seconded.
Oh, I apologize. That's
Sorry.
my fault. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Seeing none opposed, that motion passes 7-0. Moving on to the next group, continuing upon request staff attorney. We're going to go ahead and continue case number 2024R-138.
238.
238. Thank you, sir. Now I'm messing things up. You guys better come
See,
see.
you got,
Okay, hair's broken.
you're sitting so close to me.
Yeah, it's rubbing off on me.
I'm sorry.
That's not right. I'm gonna scoot towards.
Yeah, move closer to Miss Davis. She's been good all day.
All right. Good deal. I'm glad we can laugh once in a while. All right, continuing also cases number 2024R-273 and -348. Those are continued. Also the next 2024R-283 being continued. And then the reconsideration cases below, starting with 2022R-550.
My recommendation is to reconsider the matter, vacate the previous imposition of the per diem fine, instead impose a fine of $100. Gentlemen reached out to us, as did the others before us, reached out to have the matters reconsidered. And so I'm putting them up for reconsideration, and imposing the stated fines based on prior history before the commission. Primarily, that's the difference in the fine amounts from one particular case to the next. I'll be glad to answer any questions the committee.
Are there any questions of the commission members? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, excellent. Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. The next case under consideration is 2023R-042. Bill, do you want to read that title or you want me to?
Reconsider the matter, vacate the previous imposition of the per diem fine, and instead impose a fine of $150.
Are there any questions of the commission members? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, that has been properly motioned and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, seeing none, motion passes 7-0. Next, 2023R-048. Phil looks busy, so I'm gonna read it. Reconsider, oh, go ahead. Got it.
Okay,
Got
I
it.
was gonna say, reconsider the matter, vacate the previous imposition of the per diem fine, and instead impose a fine of $350. Because it was one case in which we found a violation of good cause. And the other one in which we imposed a per diem fine that was never dealt with. Here, we're dealing with him at this point, and so hopefully that you will not hear from him in the future, and he'll pay his fine.
All right, good deal. Any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, properly motioned and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You are right, Ernie. I'm getting an unfair bias to the ayes because I'm not even recommending the nay.
I know.
It's not on purpose, just,
Presumptive.
well, I don't know. I'm not leading you, but it is happening out of, I think, just rustiness. Okay. All right, moving on to case number 2024G-011 for the hearing.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, in this case, the complainant asserts that the respondent failed to file a campaign finance report as required by statute. You have had previously submitted to you all the complaint and a response that was submitted at the time of the preliminary review. At the preliminary review, after hearing the complaint and having the response presented to us, the commission determined to set the matter for hearing, and so here we are. And so at this point, would be up to the commission to assess all the evidence that ends up being presented to us in making a determination in the case. I'll be glad to participate in whatever manner I can. But the matter is now before you and for your respective considerations.
Let me call it keeping responding first.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. All right.
Even Crystal.
Commission ready? Okay, very good. We appreciate you being here today. Would the complainant like to approach stand?
Now, what I will, Mr. O'Brien, while you are counsel, you are the complainant.
Yes.
And so you'll need to be sworn.
Yes,
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Um,
Opening statement.
okay.
Yep,
good.
opening statement, and then we can hear from Mr. Colombo, with his opening statement, and then we can be taking over.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for allowing me to be here today, first timer, other than the preliminary hearing back in May. So, the evidence will show that Ms. D'Angelo committed multiple violations to Revised Code 351710, including a late filing of the required Ohio campaign finance report. The evidence will also show, even as today, her 5/15/24 amended Ohio campaign finance report is at the very least inaccurate and incomplete. The evidence will also show that Ms. D'Angelo was required on 10/26/23 to file a pre-election Ohio campaign finance report because of the contributions she had accepted prior to that date, and she failed to do so. The evidence will also show that Ms. D'Angelo violated 351710 and failing to file a post-election Ohio campaign report by the deadline on 12/15/2023 because of the contributions and expenditures she expended prior to that time. The evidence will also show that she did not file the necessary annual report by the deadline on 35/17/10/A3. Beyond all those described violations, the evidence will also show Ms. D'Angelo knowingly concealed and misrepresented information regarding contributions given or expenditures made in violation of Revised Code 351713G1. In reviewing the evidence of this case, I hope the commission can properly weigh where we are at in the process. I suspect that Ms. D'Angelo or her counsel will attempt to say she's a novice. This is the first time she's run for office. I made some mistakes. Perhaps that defense, if you can call it that, would have been more properly given back when I filed the complaint or at the preliminary hearing had she indeed showed up. She did not show up. Her former attorney presented an affidavit, which is part of the record. An affidavit in which Ms. D'Angelo denied she violated any of these revised code sections and continued to deny it, that is riddled with misstatements and falsehoods that she provided under oath, and then at the end had the audacity to ask this commission, don't go any further with your review. This commission must appreciate the importance and not condone such behavior and the culpability of Ms. D'Angelo based upon her past actions and the seriousness of a full and fair elections with the financial disclosures. Thank you.
Would the respondents like to offer their introductory remarks?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Corey Colombo. I'm an attorney with the law firm of McTighe & Colombo. And as you know, I represent Sally D'Angelo. She was, it's in the record, but she was a 2023 general election candidate for Bainbridge Township trustee, Bainbridge in Geauga County. She did not prevail at the election last fall, about a year ago exactly. Her opponent was Mr. O'Brien's wife, Christina O'Brien, who I believe is here today. And Mr. O'Brien's right. I am going to make the comment she was a first-time candidate. This was her first experience with campaign finance reporting. She set up a political committee, Friends of Sally D'Angelo. She did file a waiver under the 31BB form and no plans to exceed 2,000. And the evidence will show she did run a shoestring budget, basically one mailing, a couple ads, 75 yard signs. The allegation in the complaint was that the committee exceeded $2,000 in expenditures. That's the allegation before you today. 35-17-10 is the only allegation before you today. And in the complaint, there were estimates and comparables of goods and services that were not correct. A lot of them were way over what was actually spent. And in some situations, they weren't even, there was no money spent on those particular things at all. But the complaint alleges that there were 3450, 38 in expenses, and that's not correct. And we'll show that to you today. But there's two reasons I believe this case needs to be dismissed. First of all, we have to look at the revised code section that's being alleged here. And the commission has to follow the plain language of it and look at the exact terms that were used. The waiver requirement is basically rescinded once the campaign committee makes expenditures during an election period that exceed in aggregate $2,000. So the way the campaign committee was structured, it did have a bank account, contributions went in there, but Ms. D'Angelo paid the expenses and listed them as debt on her report. So in other words, and still to this day, she has not reimbursed herself for any of the costs of the items in her report. The revised code section specifically says once the committee or once expenditures are made past 2,000, then you must file a report. Those are all currently in debt status. Otherwise, you would be adding words into the revised code that are not there and saying once you have over 2,000 in debts, then you must file a report. So those are still debts to be repaid to Ms. D'Angelo. Should those expenditures exceed 2,000, that's what triggers the report filing requirement. And it's important to note here, as the commission's aware, that these statutes need to be interpreted in a way to not violate a candidate's substantive due process, both under the federal and state constitution, as well as her First Amendment rights. Because again, the word debt is not in there, and to add it in would be to incorporate something new that would not be known to a candidate. Secondly, in an effort to be transparent, Ms. D'Angelo did file a report with the Geauga County Board of Elections, which she amended, and that was back in May 15th. So a report has been filed. And to the extent you believe today any a violation occurred, I mean, this is the equivalent of a late filing of a report. Typically, the commission assesses a $50, $100 fine for a late filing. But she did retain our law firm to evaluate everything that was on that last report. And my recommendation to her after today is going to be to amend it again, because we did determine two things that need to be changed. On the report, it said there was $1,803.11 of debt. Mr. O'Brien is correct that the postage, and we'll get into this in the hearing, the postage was actually $434.21 instead of $217.11. But there's a reasonable explanation for that. What happened is this ad had two candidates listed, and each of them sent out half the mailings. Her recollection at the time, 6 months post-election, is that each paid $217, when in fact each of them paid between $400 and $500, or $500 or so. Actually, I think the other candidate on the mailer paid $575 in that ballpark. So we will amend the report to include that. But the second change that needs to be made on the report is there was $104 that was listed as a debt owed, but that was actually an in-kind. And the person who printed the mailers did it all in their home and split the cost and indicated it's to be treated as an in-kind. So the net effect of those two changes, which will amend the report in the next couple of weeks, is that around $1,900, maybe $1,918, is actually the debt that was incurred. And so she did keep it under 2,000 to where a report wasn't even required. And again, for both the reason it was under 2,000 and it's debt, it's not a committee expenditure. So again, first time candidate, nothing here was malicious, nothing here, these are rookie mistakes a lot of candidates make. In the normal course of business, the Board of Election would flag things, send an audit letter, give you 3 weeks, 21 days to amend your report. But this kind of fast tracked right to the commission. So amendments to reports are pretty common, and that's what we plan to do. But for the reasons I mentioned, the two reasons, we would ask the commission not to find a violation. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Because just 2 items of clarification. Did I understand you to indicate you believe that the allegations mentioned by counsel in the opening statement exceed that which was set forth in the complaint?
I do. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, the allegation in the complaint is that there were more than $2,000 of expenditures by the committee pursuant to 3517-10K. That's the allegation. And in his opening, he referenced a few additional things that are not part of this complaint.
So you believe the arguments are limited to those set forth?
I do, Commissioner.
And second question, do you acknowledge then that there was in fact a late filing?
I do not, for the 2 reasons I stated. In fact, as we evaluated this in our office, again, with it being debt, it's not until there's $2,000 of expenditures by the committee that a report would be due. That's the first thing. And the second reason, again, just with the allegation and the complaint, according to our math, it's closer to $1,900 that was in debt. It didn't exceed 2,000. There were a couple, and I don't, Mr. O'Brien didn't know how, like, for example, the flyer was printed. I think the estimate there was like $1,000 in the complaint. Well, that was done at someone's house, and they said it was $208 for ink and paper, and split that between the 2 candidates. So that right there takes his estimate down close, $900 less. And there were, allegations that there was cost for artwork, no money was spent on artwork. So it takes it under 2,000. So if you ask me, I technically think she filed the report, to try to do the right thing, to be a good actor, to show full disclosure. But if you ask me, I don't think the requirement's even been triggered yet for that she had to file a report yet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So when you file a waiver, you got to file something post-election, even if it is just a statement to the Board of Elections that says, I didn't spend over $2,000. Was that filed?
I don't believe that was filed,
Okay.
but I think I'd have to look at that if that's when that would be required, or if it is at all.
My understanding, when you file a waiver, you certainly have an ability to transact your campaign however you wish to transact your campaign. But the obligation under the statute is then at the end of that period, you have to file something. You don't have to file a full campaign finance report. You could, you don't have to, but you have to at least file a statement with the Board of Election that says, I complied with the terms of the waiver, or I didn't spend over $2,000 or receive over $2,000.
Yeah, I would just ask that we look at that to see exactly what that requirement is and when it's due and if it's due or under what circumstances. Because I don't have that section in front of me. I have it in front of me on my desk, so we look at that. But if that were to be the case, the worst case scenario is like all these previous cases before us today. You're talking the worst case scenario. You're looking at it, the report was filed late, if you believe the report was due. But again, and then the allegation wasn't either that wasn't filed. The allegation was the expenditures exceeded 2,000 by the committee.
Madam Vice Chair. Question for Mr. Colombo. Can you help me with, you spoke of the candidate loaning her campaign committee money, showing that there was a debt. If I'm understanding correctly, are you suggesting that because the candidate loaned herself money for the campaign, that it would not have hit the $2,000 trigger?
A couple thoughts on that. It wasn't technically a loan, 'cause a loan would be monetary. So it fits in the debt category when goods or services are paid by someone other than the committee. To the other part of your question, yeah, so they reported on the campaign finance report as debts. That's money the committee owes an individual or an entity. And those, due to the complaint being filed, she put everything on hold. She has not reimbursed herself yet. So all the contributions she's received so far are still in the bank account for the committee bank account. I don't know if that answers.
It helps.
Okay, sure. Yep.
Madam Chair. I have a question for Mr. Richter before we go further. So, Mr. Richter, so even if she respondent failed to file a post-election report, do you believe that is germane to the current allegation that's in front of us?
That something should have been filed?
Well, my point is when we're making our decision, obviously the claim states that complainant asserts that the respondent failed to file campaign finance reports as required by the statute. If I heard Mr. Colombo right, he's saying that we have a limited complaint. It seems to me that in my mind, if we have a post-election report that she hasn't filed, which I think they've admitted, I'm asking you, when we are making our decision, are we limited to the current allegation in front of us or things that have not occurred? Or not that they haven't occurred, but that are not actually in front of us. It would seem to me that a post-election issue would have to have another complaint filed to be germane for this commission.
No, because to me, at least, because of the way the statute reads, if it can be established that the candidate had over $2,000 in activity, then the provisions of K more or less go away, and you are obligated to file a post-election campaign finance report.
No, I understand that, but that's not the charge in front of us, is my point.
Are we
We're
limited?
to the allegation.
We're limited to the allegations set forth in the complaint, true?
Well, we're limited to the allegations set forth in the complaint, yes. But
That was my
I think the
question.
complaint though asserts, each candidate for candidates campaign committee shall timely file a statement of campaign contributions expenditures pursuant to 35-17-10 if the candidate and campaign committee, among other things, makes total expenditures in excess of $2,000.
I understand that.
So
That's not what I was asking.
I guess I'm confused then when I'm not sure. Because I guess I look at it as,
Okay, we have one, let me see if I can be clear. So we have an allegation in front of us. It seems to me that by adding the failure to file a post-campaign finance reform or report, that is now a second allegation. That's my point. Am I not being clear here?
no, I maybe I'm interpreting it differently than based on what my interpretation of the complaint is. My interpretation of the complaint is that the assertion by the complainant is that the respondent failed to file something in the post-election period. And if it can be established that there was over $2,000 expended,
I get that.
then a full campaign finance report should have been filed, and that was not yet filed.
That's not easy to say.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm saying, let me try again.
If I could, Mr. Lott.
Yes, please.
What Mr. Colombo maintained, I believe, is that the $2,000 issue, whether the expenditures were above or below that, is the sole issue set forth in the affidavit, which constitutes the complaint. Do you believe that we may entertain issues beyond the $2,000 cap issue, like the complainant discussed in his opening statement? Or do you agree with Mr. Colombo that we're limited to the $2,000 cap issue that he referenced?
I guess, you're certainly welcome to tell me I'm losing it. But I guess I look at it as the $2,000 cap issue is the primary focus of what we're looking at. And if it has been exceeded, then there was a failure to file the post-election campaign finance report.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think I can answer this question. Using your own rules, Ohio Administrative Code 3517-1-11. It says after your preliminary review, when it becomes before this body, it says if the preliminary review is held before a full commission, the commission may, subsection B, amend the complaint or referral sua sponte, that means on your own,
I
as
understand.
you know, to include additional parties or allegations and continue the preliminary review to permit proper joinder and necessary pursuant to these rules if it finds additional apparent violations sufficiently alleged against any party or other person. So I would submit personally that your own rules say that whatever is presented showing a violation is something that you should consider. Not limited to, by the way, a complaint that I filed well before I even had access to the 510 and then the amended 515 application. If you would like to reconvene this meeting, I'll go back and redraft everything so that now that I have all the evidence in front of me, because she filed it late and I didn't have it in May, and then we can come back and I can present
Madam
all
Chair,
these other violations.
if I may, so we can move this along. You did not, though, counsel, update, amend, or otherwise change your initial complaint as set forth in the affidavit, correct?
I did not. No.
Okay, I think we can move.
Are there other questions? Members?
No, ready to go.
Okay. All right. If there are no questions, is there a motion?
No,
No.
no, it's a matter of now the complainant can present his evidence.
Nice. So quick to the punch. They said be efficient, I'm being too efficient. All right. Okay, all right. If the complainant would like to approach the stand and provide evidence.
I apologize, I don't know the actual procedures of your, so if my only witness would be Miss D'Angelo. And I have some questions to ask her. I have some documents, some of which we've stipulated,
You can call her.
Corey and I. I don't know if you have copies of these documents. This is, I made enough for.
Have they previously been submitted to the commission to either Chris or the executive director in any way, shape, or form?
They have not.
Okay, so they would need to be submitted for evidence, correct? We can consider them.
On an exhibit by exhibit basis as you present them to the witnesses in a normal court hearing. We'll have a witness take the seat and be sworn in.
Stand if you will.
He's gonna present them one at a time. Well,
Resubmitted
Yeah,
anyway.
once you get that set.
do we have copies of these?
No, that's what we're saying. That's, we do not.
I made copies enough for everybody. Just
Oh, you have additional,
Yes.
okay, so please
Just in
submit
case.
through.
But we do after all the evidence has been admitted to the, and it all.
He'll have to move from commission.
Also can wait 30 days. Right.
Oh.
If we want to deliver.
Just bear with us, a little bit of patience to rearrange this room appropriately.
Madam Chair, if I could, do we have a number of exhibits to be handed out and circulated? I saw quite a stack.
We do.
Okay.
Well, you'd see it because I made enough for everybody.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, submitting them in advance would have been better. I would suggest maybe, Madam Chair, that we take a 5-minute break, get the exhibits circulated and get the witness situated, whatever the.
Absolutely, we will go ahead and take a 5-minute break in order to distribute those materials appropriately.
Thank you.
I'll just send it. All right, okay. All right, Chris, are you on?
Apologize about that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I may, before we begin. This is my pet peeve. I've raised this before with the commission. But under 35, this is regarding exhibits 3517-1-11. And if you go to B,
Emily's the middle.
you go to B, well, you don't have it. I have this. I just keep it. B,
5
let me
days
go
in
back
advance of the hearing.
under, hold on, I'll get it. B under hearings. And then we go to 4 under there, it says rules of evidence, and it says F. And it says all exhibits shall be consecutively lettered or numbered by the commission staff as they are received in office of the commission or at the hearing. Exhibits in support of allegations shall be lettered. Exhibits submitted by respondents shall be numbered. Now, so if this is the complainant's exhibits, I'm assuming, that's what it says. They need to be lettered and not numbered. And I'm not trying to be picky Eunice here, but the last hearing that we had, I don't know if the rest of the commission found that to be an issue. We had so many exhibits and they were all numbered. Now, when our job, after, we don't make a decision here, or we're making a decision, or we want to take it back and then look at the exhibits, if everything is marked one way, it is very difficult, okay, to look at the exhibits when you're trying to make a decision. So I would ask the chair that we follow our rules and that they be numbered and not lettered. I'm sorry, I said that backwards.
Lettered.
Exhibits in support of allegation shall be lettered.
Very good. I appreciate that insight, Commissioner Lyle. Well, why don't we go ahead and manually adjust those?
That's
Let's
fine.
start with exhibit number 1. And is it okay, Executive Director and staff, if we just go ahead and assume 1 is A and also,
Actually, for clarity, the last exhibit letter that I provided was actually D. So if we could start from F, I think it would be much easier for this. No?
I'm sorry.
Oh, for this.
That's what got us into trouble last
Oh,
time,
okay,
that we
okay.
didn't follow.
Sorry, I'm
so
I
if you're able
apologize.
to in live time simultaneous with us, just let's get it all straight right now, once and for all. Okay, so exhibit 1.
Madam Vice Chair, I also, we have an issue down here. Someone, either yourself or Mr. Hughes, handed Commissioner Kolke and I a stack of the shareable stack. It is an affidavit that is signed by Janice Sugarman. It is marked exhibit, complainant's exhibit 6. I have a whole stack.
Yeah, it's all one exhibit,
So this is,
one exhibit.
okay.
Yes, that is.
They appear to be identical.
Identical except for their addresses.
Okay, all right, thank you, thank
Okay,
you.
very good. All right, okay.
Leave label.
All right, knowing that, exhibit 1 that looks like this, it has at the top of the ledger, O'Brien, Gregory J. If this is exhibit 1, it is now exhibit A. Please correct it
Sure.
manually. Thank you, absolutely, my pleasure. Exhibit 2, Bainbridge Community United Church of Christ, now exhibit B.
Okay.
Okay. Exhibit 3, USPS document, documentation on what looks like a checking receipt is now exhibit C. So 3 is now C. QuickBooks, exhibit 4 is now D. Second QuickBooks, you paid $518 is exhibit, I apologize, E. Geauga County exhibit, or I apologize, pause. If you have the next document, it reads Ohio Elections Commission at the top. And it is exhibit 6. Some of you are sharing. This half of the room is sharing. This half of the room has their own.
Okay.
That is now exhibit F.
Should be a,
All right, Geauga County Campaign Finance Reminder, exhibit 7 is now exhibit G. And then lastly, the forward Sally D'Angelo email exhibit 8. See, H, sorry, trying to remember where we are.
No, I know.
I think I got 2 boys in kindergarten. I could keep it together. up
I'm
here.
counting the alphabet as you speak, so it's easier.
The alphabet. What we do at the commission. Okay. H. So we should be in good shape. Thank you, Commissioner Lyle. Now that we've all gone through the painful excruciating exercise, I hope that all watching will submit in that order moving forward. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, is there an extra copy? I did not get exhibit. Was 6, it's now out.
It does not appear so, but we can donate one of ours. How about would? any
I hear I
commission
can.
members-
I can, I'll share with Mr. Knight.
Thank you. kindly.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. We're big boys.
All right, folks. Very good. Thank you. Okay. I said proceed before, but are there any other comments or inquiries of the commission members? Okay, hearing none. You have the floor, Mr. O'Brien. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I apologize about the delay. I would like to call Ms. D'Angelo for as a witness. She's gonna have to review some of these exhibits. Should I just grab the court borders exhibit copy or?
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and share with my seatmate and commissioner member, and I will make sure that she has those. Yeah. How about, do you have F in your possession? Can we use yours to donate to? Thank you. And then it's all up.
If I. He needs to get back.
1 second. Share with them.
Table me till Monday.
Other than the affidavits, I have a full complete.
Oh, you know what? For purposes of her being able to refer to the same exhibit as a label, we'll just.
Here over there now,
so I'm. You mind if I sit here?
I don't mind, Corey. You do sit wherever you like. We'll get through this as quick as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you. Should we just go this back?
Yeah.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I did.
Ms. D'Angelo, we've never formally met. As you know, my name is Greg O'Brien. Just to expedite things because of the marking of exhibits, instead of asking you questions, let me direct you and let me know if this is true, that you have a bachelor's degree from the Ohio State University.
Yes.
That you were 7 years an educator, both in public and private schools.
Yes.
You spent 30 years as a business owner, serving as the president of Lakeshore Dance and Gymnastics, and at times manage employees.
40 years.
40 years. Manage employees of 26 to 30 employees at any given time, correct? You would handle day-to-day matters for your business,
Yes.
bookkeeping.
Yes.
In front of you, Ms. D'Angelo, is Exhibit A that's unmarked. This has been stipulated by your current counsel and I. This is a public records request that I received from the Geauga County Board of Elections that I received on October 21st. Can you turn to the first tab in that document? Are you on the designation of treasurer?
Yes.
Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
You submitted that document to the Ohio Board of Election or the Geauga Board of Elections, correct?
Yes.
And you're the treasurer of the Friends for Sally D'Angelo Committee.
Yes.
You could turn to the second tab, please. The second tab is entitled Local Candidate Waiver. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
Is that your signature on that document?
Yes.
And in that document, is it fair to say you agreed not to do three things during your campaign? Accept the total aggregate contributions that exceed $2,000 from all contributors, accept contributions of more than $100 from any single individual contributor, and make total expenditures in excess of $2,000, correct?
Correct.
And was it your understanding that as long as you didn't do those three things, you wouldn't have to comply with any further reporting?
True.
You turn to page or tab 3, Ms. D'Angelo. Do you recognize this?
Can I look at one thing?
Sure.
And so I'm, it said $100, so that doesn't, so our discrepancy is something about, saying dollars, but.
Yeah, no, we'll get to that. And
Sure.
if anytime you need to read something,
Okay.
I'm just trying to be sensitive
Sure.
to it. Please take your time.
Mhm.
If you go to tab 3, that is the Ohio Campaign Finance Report that you filed on 5/10/2024, correct?
Yes.
Did you complete this form?
Yes.
Did anybody else assist you in completing this form?
Scott Deisher from Geauga County.
Okay. And you sat down with Mr. Dasher and to complete this form, or when you presented it, you asked him to look it over?
I filled it out while he stood there. I asked him pretty much all what to do.
You asked him what to do? You were unaware of what you needed to do as treasurer?
I was under the understanding that I was just doing this in kind for the first hearing, actually, just to be, or not in kind, as like, a good faith,
Okay,
that I didn't need to do it. So if I would have needed to do it, I wouldn't have been doing it last minute like I did it last time.
okay, so
So yeah, I just did it last minute. And so yeah, I asked him how to do it.
when you say if you needed to do it, are you speaking to if you needed to do it if you,
If I had violated
any of the three conditions?
exactly.
Okay. So this is dated 5/10/2024, but 5 days later, you filed an amended Ohio Campaign Finance Report, correct? On
Yes.
5/15/2024? Why, what was the purpose of filing the amended campaign? report?
Because the numbers didn't match, but since I've met with, Mr. Colombo, we have figured that I was actually right in the first one with something that should have been in kind. I made it in debt instead, so.
So the only,
Confusion.
yeah, the only difference other than the numbers, Ms. D'Angelo, is it fair to say from the Ohio Campaign Finance Report you filed on 5/10/2024
Mhm.
and 5/15/2024 is the moving $104 from Terry Carson, an in-kind contribution, which you identified on 5/10,
Right,
that you moved to
in debt,
in debt.
right.
So the only difference, other than the numbers, would be moving that 104 from Terry Carson, where you said on 5/10, it was an in-kind contribution, and then you moved it to 104 in debt, meaning you paid that money, correct?
Yes.
You paid an
No,
actual
I
check.
haven't paid anything yet.
You have not paid anybody $104 yet.
No,
And why did you move it on 5/15 to a debt you owed?
because that's how I understood it.
Who led you to believe that it was a debt that you owed versus in kind?
Yeah, I can't recall, really, I don't, it was, I just know that I just changed it, and I can't recall who I discussed it with.
It's not because if you put the 104 based upon your numbers, which we'll get into the calculations,
Sure.
the 104 actually puts you over the 2,000 on 5/10. And so on 5/15, you back the 104 to another column. So your belief is that it was under the $2,000.
Yes, that was my belief, it was under $2,000, yeah.
Okay, so well, let's stick with the one that the one you filed on 5/15/2024. And if you go to page 4, let's look at the columns and numbers there, right? Regardless of whether, are we on Ohio Campaign Finance Report 5/15/24? Are you on that page? It's tab 4 in exhibit.
Yeah, I'm on tab 4.
Okay.
Yes.
See the first page?
Mhm.
You add columns or rows 6 and 7 up. You add those up, which I did, and you come to $1,988.58, correct?
Correct.
Is that your belief that you're under $2,000?
Yes.
Well, turn to page. Turn to the page where who did the math on the bottom of each page? You?
I did.
Okay. Turn to page where at the top of the page is in-kind contributions received. And it's from Gerald Matzik,
Mhm.
$40. You see that?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I'm not sure where we're at.
We are on Exhibit A,
Right,
tab 4,
I'm there.
Ohio Campaign Finance Report 5/15/24.
Right, then you lost. me.
We're in 1, 2, 3, 4, flip 5 pages. And on the 6th page, we have an in-kind contribution of Gerald Matzik. $40.
Thank you.
Are we on the same page?
Commissioner.
I'm there.
Okay,
Thank you.
if you look down, Ms. D'Angelo, your calculation for all those amounts on that page is $68, correct?
Yes, it looks like it's a wrong addition.
Yeah, no, it is. It's actually $108, correct?
Yes.
So if you add that $40 to the amounts that you have on the first page
Mhm.
of campaign finance report, you get a total of $2,028.58, correct?
Okay.
Do you have any
I'm
reason to
agreeing with
dispute
you.
that number?
Right. No, I'm agreeing with you.
Do you agree that $2,028.58 is over $2,000?
Yes.
Okay. So we're still on Exhibit A, tab 4, and we're on your amended Ohio Campaign Finance Report. Let's flip the page, okay?
Yeah.
The first page is Friends of Sally D'Angelo, Geauga County Democratic Party. And you put in this report that you received $500 from them, correct?
What page?
The first page after the totals.
I have Coran Lab after that one. Oh, after the,
You have what?
I'm in the wrong order.
The first page after the cover page on your campaign finance report. So go to the tab, then go to the second page after the
On
tab.
515, not your 510 report.
okay.
So under tab 4, is that what you're saying? If-
Tab 4,
tab
page
4?
2.
Yeah,
Tab
we're
4.
going
Got it.
back, not,
Okay, got it.
thank you.
Okay, you there?
Council, if you could, just to make it easy for everybody, tab 4, what numbered page within that tab? I think all of us have found ourselves getting a little confused.
Okay,
Tab 4, let's go by page number so we can all be on the same page,
thank you.
literally.
So tab 4, page 2. You received a check from the Geauga County Democratic Party, correct?
Yes,
In the amount of $500, correct?
yes.
When did you receive that check?
Sometime in October, I don't, probably in the other form, it was probably the dates on it, the original.
I'll save you some time. There's no date on your originally
Original
filed
either.
report as well.
It was September, October,
Of 2023.
2023, yes.
Uh,
Okay, there's no date.
And the Geauga County Democratic's Women's Caucus provided you a check of $150. When?
Same time, September, October, 2023.
How many fundraisers did you have during your campaign?
One,
Was that the one on October 1st
Yes.
at the Lutheran Hall, at
yes,
the church? Okay. Did you have any fundraisers on September 13th or September 12th, 2023? The only reason I ask is if you page through this entire document, all
yeah.
these checks are dated, let me finish, are dated September 13th, 2023 or September 12th, 2023, except for 2.
Right, because that was the day I signed the contract for the church. And so I used that contract date, right? So I'm another mistake as a novice, sorry. But yeah, that's the date I used. That's the day I signed the contract with UCC Church.
So we're going to go over all these donations. Is it a fair statement that at the October 1st, 2023 fundraiser that you
Yes.
had at the church hall, that
Yes,
you received these checks?
No, not all of them, no. No,
But most, the ones marked 9/13 or 9/12.
yes.
The ones marked 9/12, same,
I don't know about the 9/12. I have to look at them. The one marked 9/13, those were definitely from the fundraiser, yes.
okay,
Nine,
Yes, or
other ones that like say 9/7, that's not a fundraiser.
okay. So the Friends of the Geauga County Democrats Party and Geauga County Democratic Women's Caucus handed you a check as treasurer on October 1st, 2023.
No. Okay, say it again, please.
When did you receive the checks from the Democratic Party of Geauga County and the Democratic Women's Caucus of Geauga County?
They were not at the fundraiser. I didn't receive it then.
Okay, you have you deposited those checks in the Friends of Sally D'Angelo bank
Yes,
account.
yes.
So if this commission wanted to find when those checks were provided to you, they could easily see that by getting the bank records.
Yes.
We're still on exhibit 4, page 2. You reference from Form 31E, $350.
Yes.
Just gonna object on relevance, just because the allegation in the complaint is on the expenditures being over 2,000. And we're getting into other areas of the report, like things not being dated, contributions that came in. That's not part of the complaint.
Well, we would submit that this board is certainly within its power if it finds a violation to Ohio Revised Code, certainly in the spirit of efficiency of this board, to have the evidence conform to this matter and amend the complaint to include all violations, so to prevent this board from having to come back and rehear all this evidence a second time. But I'll leave that in discretion of the chair and the board.
Can I just respond to that? If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think, obviously the commission's a quasi judicial body. Out of rules of fairness and notice to a party on what they're coming to a hearing for, we prepared to explain to you that there weren't over $2,000 in expenditures. That's all that's alleged. To now put us in a position to defend that dates are missing from the report, a party shouldn't have to come to a hearing and be ready to defend any other things that come up on a report or in an exhibit to defend themselves at the day of the hearing. So I would just request we keep it to the allegation in the complaint that there were over 2,000 expenditures. To me, anything else is irrelevant.
So council can, along those lines in efficiency to help to move this along, based upon the inaccuracies that I showed you in exhibit A4, the amended 5/10/2024 Ohio Campaign Finance Report, we can agree that the amounts that Ms. D'Angelo received exceed $2,000.
I don't think we can in monetary contributions.
It's total contributions.
Well, I mean but that's not an allegation in the complaint, first of all. Secondly, I think that's a legal issue if you should treat in-kinds as contributions for purposes of this section. Because so much of the code discusses in-kinds and monetary contributions separately. So I mean, that would be a legal issue, but it's not an allegation in the complaint. So.
I'm just reading from what your client signed on A, that all candidates signed when they filed this waiver. They will not accept the total aggregate contributions that exceed $2,000 from all contributors. An aggregate of contributions. But I understand your legal argument, board can take that. So.
I'd say sustain the objection. Because, I mean, the challenge is the statement that's included in the complaint says, which is, I won't say true, but the statement says each candidate for office and the candidate's campaign committee shall timely file a statement of campaign contributions and expenditures pursuant to 351710 if candidate and campaign committee, among other things, makes total expenditures in excess of $2,000. So the statement in the complaint does reference $2,000 in expenditures. But the statute does obligate somebody to file a campaign finance report if they've received contributions or expenditures over $2,000. I would sustain the objection because of what the wording in the complaint specifically identifies expenditures.
Well, Mr. Richter, how would, then I would ask that this board, because I did not have the consideration of much of this information until after the preliminary hearing. And as you know, I've communicated with your office. I only received the notice of this hearing a week and a half ago. For some reason, it was lost in the mail because it was resent to me. I'm at a disadvantage here. And I thought this board was designed to look at and to abide or to assure of fair elections and make sure people are following and playing by the rules. But if you're saying that I'm going to be strapped and this board wants to take the position to not look at the evidence in this case that is on the face of all these documents, then I would suggest to you that I will ask that we for a motion for extension of time to put together all the allegations now that we have all the evidence and to come back, or at the very least, which I believe, and Corey shared with me because he does this, I don't do this. The board's power is, and I think we could get to the root of it rather quickly, if the board sends an audit letter to the campaign and obtains all these, because there's been no checks, no receipts, no invoices from any third party. These are all just, a check receipt with nothing on it, a carbon copy receipt. So that I would ask if we really want to get to the justice of the matter, and then this board can look at it. That's what I would ask then. If you're gonna hamstring me just to what I put in a complaint before I had all the evidence, because they filed it right before the hearing.
Madam Vice Chair. Question to Mr. Richter. Mr. Richter, isn't it true that when we have a probable cause hearing at the preliminary review stage and set the matter for full hearing, that the complainant then had the ability to subpoena records?
Yes.
And so I would ask counsel, did you subpoena any records additionally, the exhibits that we have today? Were these all part of a public filing, or did you subpoena these records from the respondent?
I did not issue or ask any subpoenas to be issued.
Were you aware that you have the ability to subpoena records?
I was aware when I received this last notice from Mr. Richter, and then I started looking into your rules.
Okay.
But I understand your point.
And you said you didn't receive the hearing because we had this in May. I'm just trying to, timing wise, you learned of our hearing a week and a half.
Week and a half ago.
Okay.
And the notice I received was clearly sent to the other address. I could not see it because a hand sticky of my home address was put over the top of what was originally sent, and then sent to me. Probably put in a new envelope, but put over it.
Thank you.
I would just, Ms. D'Angelo, if we could turn to Exhibit 4. I'm sorry, Exhibit A, tab 4, please. And if you could turn in tab 4 to 1, 2, 3.
Quickly, there was a request for a motion. So we do sustain it with the exception of if the dates are relevant to the question at hand, please do interact with those accordingly.
So, Madam Chair, just of clarification. If you look on page 5 of Ms. D'Angelo's 515 filing.
Is that under tab 4? Ms.
Yes, ma'am. Tab 4. There's one item on there, anonymous cash donations. $350.50, which
Okay,
Oh,
just a moment, just clarification. It's my understanding in preparing for this hearing today that no one, it's precluded under Ohio law not to obtain the treasurer, to obtain the information of cash. And I understand why that rule would be in place. Certainly anything under $25, they have to use good faith efforts to get the name. But there's nothing in this filing that shows. So are you saying that I can't ask her why she collected $350 in cash, even though it would be a facial violation of the law?
Yeah, no, again, I would object. Just as a background, I mean, this preliminary review was in May. And even though the parties only have had notice for a week or two, I mean, this complaint could have been amended if, complaint wanted the commission to consider additional elements or aspects or violations of law. But I mean, that didn't happen. And, so I think instead of using this hearing as a way to try to ask about things that aren't in the complaint, I don't think it's the best use of the commission's time when it's not an aspect. And additionally, I mentioned this is, and he had every right to file a complaint, but we're really fast tracking through what the board would normally do when they get a report. I mean, campaign finance reports have date issues all the time, addition issues all the time. The board sends an audit letter. They give you an opportunity to provide anything they think is missing or incorrect. So it's a little unusual that we're just fast tracking this right to the commission, scrutinizing every aspect of a campaign finance report for a township treasurer race or township trustee race where, both sides spent minimal dollars. I've already said we're going to amend this report based on things we've discovered. I mentioned the correct amount for the postage, but these are all things that would be done before referred to the commission if a party didn't have an opportunity to make some corrections. But I think to the original question, I mean, it's contributions were not part of this complaint. So, I mean, I would just object again on that.
Has there been any, I'm just curious, has there been any conversation between your client and the Board of Elections as it relates to any of these issues?
Ms. D'Angelo, have you gotten any audit letters or anything?
No, but again, I filled this out with Scott Dasher from Geauga County.
If I may, just so the commissioners know, who is Scott?
He's the treasurer, he's in charge of Ohio, the campaign finance department
Of the Board of
of
Elections.
the Board of Elections in Geauga, yes.
I could save this board a lot of time, based upon what Ms. D'Angelo's counsel said. We can adjourn this meeting. Through your help, Corey, you can help Ms. D'Angelo file a proper report, amended report, not waiving any complaint, as you understand, with proper receipts, copies of checks written that she purportedly wrote. And when it comes back to the board and sends me, we may even just resolve this. We could resolve it at that point.
Well, I mean, my preference would be to resolve it today because, I mean, they drove in from 2.5 hours. I know, and the same with you and your candidate. But, I don't see the purpose for let's bump this a couple months. He would amend the complaint.
Yeah,
I mean, the time to amend it, the complaint's had 6 months. He's had these documents in his possession since May.
Corey, you'll agree that I can amend or file a second complaint, correct?
Madam
Well-
Chair, if I could,
sure.
we need to get to a decision point here. We are here for hearing today. Let me just briefly state, and this is just my viewpoint for our panel. Number 6 of the complaint, which is actually an affidavit, states, one sentence, each candidate for office in the candidate's campaign committee shall timely file a statement of campaign contributions and expenditures pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 35.7.10. if the candidate and campaign committee, among other things, makes total expenditures in excess of $2,000. Now, what we know is that an affidavit complaint was filed, that there was an opportunity to amend, change, update it in any way, shape, or form prior to this hearing. That was never done. Council acknowledged that fact. We also know that under our rules, discovery can be conducted, subpoenas may be sent, ample opportunity was provided for all of us. The hearing was noticed. Nothing was done in the intervening week and a half period of time that we're all aware of to do any of those things. We get exhibits at the last minute that require us to adjourn and take additional time. Those weren't provided on time. We are here for a hearing today. Now, that allegation includes campaign contributions and expenditures, may be limited to the $2,000 issue. In my view, we should proceed with the hearing today. We may entertain issues that talk about expenditures and contributions just to flesh out the inquiries on examination, and then make our own studied decision about whether the allegations set forth in the complaint relating to the $2,000 issue have been violated. If counsel would like to bring another complaint at some future point in time, address discovery and subpoenas, he may do so. We're here today for a full hearing. I would suggest that we proceed on the narrow issue that's before us, though allow some lenience to ask questions relating to contributions, because I think once the questions get asked, it'll be relatively streamlined, but the objections back and forth are going to prolong things. That is simply my suggestion. To the executive director, I don't know if you have any comments on that suggestion.
No, I'm just one, in the back of my mind, I'm wondering whether council would want to have any kind of conversations concerning some of the evidence that has been discussed here, with all due respect to your concerns about, the expenditure issue. Certainly, there have been things brought to the attention of the commission that could presumably cause concern to your client. Correct?
You mean for the amounts on the reports?
Correct. Yes.
I mean, you've got the factual issues and you got legal issues, whether in-kind should be treated as contributions, whether debt is treated as expenditures. And, I maintain what was in my opening statement, that you have under $2,000 in debt right now.
And if I just may, Madam Chairman, I sat while this committee deliberated other cases where I believe it was Mr. Kirschner or Mr. Knight, where there was a distinguishment between someone making a payment for another campaign versus their own campaign. And the distinguishment was, if someone's making making a payment for their own campaign, it's expenditure to their campaign. And in the exhibit 4, Miss D'Angelo listed a whole bunch of expenditures. She incorrectly put them on statement of outstanding debts, but those are expenditures she made that she self-identified in here for yard signs, printing of direct mail, postage, rental of hall, yard signs. So to your point, Mr. Richter, or to Mr. Kirschner, I can get to the quick and show that expenditures and contributions far exceed $2,000. And it's on the face of the amended Ohio Campaign Finance Report, filed 5/15/2024, which is months and months and months late. And then I will take your advice and say that some of these other shenanigans, on the 510 report, she listed it in kind from Terry Carson, and on the not was not. She switched it to a payment that she made. The fact that she did receive contributions over $100 in violation of the waiver she signed, I can make those at another date if you would like.
Very good. We just ask that you proceed accordingly.
Okay. So we're going to stick with Exhibit A 4.
Can I answer something first? When I signed the sheet about the under $2,000, so it says accept contributions of more than $100 from any single individual contribution. So the 350 and the 500, those are from organizations. Those are not individual.
Yeah,
That's not included in
Yeah.
that.
Yes, I checked with several boards of elections and our lawyers up there. And Mr. Richter is the final arbitrator of this. But an individual is a campaign committee. Think about how that would work. And it's those organizations. Those are within the different definition of a person or individual.
And in kind is not included.
It's not for
It's
my,
not dollars.
not for my decision. I wasn't a treasurer of a committee, Ms. D'Angelo, it's for the commission. But I would just
That's my
report to
question.
the,
Is in kind considered? I mean, that's how Scott Asher explained it to me. I'm just, trying to clarify my understanding.
Oh, just let him ask his question.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
so this goes to whether or not all the monetary expenditures are placed on the report to get. Do you want to stipulate, or do you want me to go through the fact that these expenditures and contributions that she received in September and October of 2023 far exceed $2,000? Or do you want me to continue this?
On
It's right there on the document that she filed under oath.
contributions or expenditures? Sorry, can you just repeat? that?
All the in-kind contributions, monetary contributions, and her expenditures, although she mislabels them as loan obligations, she never, not included in Exhibit 4, Commission, Madam Chairman. In Exhibit 4, there's no expenditure statement in this document. Ms. D'Angelo, did you place the amounts for the sign and the rental hall? Those are expenditures that you expended on behalf of the committee.
Mr. O'Brien, for clarity for the commission members, please address the commission and also allow us to know where you are referencing in this point of conversation.
I'm on Exhibit 4.
Change them to letters.
I'm sorry. Exhibit A, tab 4.
Yeah, perfect.
And I'm going to the first page that is marked at the top, Statement of Outstanding Debts. And the first reference on there is the Sally D'Angelo, $518. Let me know when everybody's on the same page.
It is page 8
Page
of.
8.
Thank you.
Ms. D'Angelo, Exhibit A,
Yes.
tab 4, page 8, purports to say that on 10/4/23, you paid $518 for yard signs. Is that correct?
True.
Okay. And below that, even though it was identified differently in your 510 report, you are now claiming that you expended $104 for the printing of this document that
Yes.
you say was created by some person in their house.
Yes.
Do you know if they have a professional folder? If Mr. Carson has a professional folder?
Folded it by hand.
You folded that by hand? Perfectly, all the copies we have.
He folded things by hand.
Okay.
In-house. I had hip surgery. They brought it to my house. I folded.
So, Ms. D'Angelo, if you turn the page, the next item you have on your statement of the debts is for the rental of hall, $75.
Yes.
And the hall rental was actually $150, correct?
I split it with the other candidates.
If you can turn to Exhibit B. Exhibit B. Why did you split the hall with the other candidate? It's Mabel Kopp, correct?
Yes,
And why did you split that with her?
because she wanted to be in on it. Yeah,
So
so,
it was a campaign event for her too.
yes,
Okay. So if on Exhibit B, this is, you filled this out, correct? This
Yes.
form? And anywhere on here, or does it talk about Mrs. Copp's fundraiser being a
She
joint
didn't
fundraiser?
ask me to be part of it until after I had already signed up for the, hall.
Okay. And where in your campaign finance report is the notation or documentation? Did Mrs. Kopp pay you the $75?
Yes,
So where in your campaign finance report for Exhibit A, tab 4, the amended Ohio Finance Campaign Report for 5/15/24 is the expenditure or is the receipt of the $75 from Mrs. Kopp?
so on the anonymous money that
Oh.
came in, there was, we had baskets that night. She gave me money at the fundraiser.
Okay, so
For the
you,
hall.
you passed a hat, you passed a basket.
Well, we sold baskets
Mhm.
and we had raffle for the baskets, like, you know, you make up baskets to
Mhm.
raffle off, yes. And at the fundraiser, she had given me the $75
So you knew Mrs. Kopp gave you a cash of $75.
and I put it in the anonymous report, as I recall. That's how I recall it.
And did
That's what I
Mrs. Kopp hand you the 75 or did she put it in one of these raffle baskets that you're talking about?
She paid me at the end of the night. She gave me money at the end of the night. I had
Cash.
a cash, I had a cash box.
So you knew Ms. Kopp gave you the $75.
Right.
Is there anything to show this commission that you indeed received the so you took the $75
Yes.
and that night or shortly thereafter, you deposited the $75 into your campaign account?
With the other $350 in cash, right, as part of that, yes.
And the other people that gave you the cash, how
That
did
was the
you,
only cash we got. It wasn't a very big fundraiser. It was small.
the,
So the other fundraiser, the other money I got was those checks. People wrote checks to me.
Mhm.
And that was the 9/13 that I got the date wrong. It should have been October 1st.
but you got $350 in cash?
Cash, yes.
And
and
how
the-
did you,
the
and
tickets
what
were like
denomination?
$1 each. So like, you know, they were under, I didn't have to make receipts out for $1 tickets.
Did you have a sign-in sheet for everybody that attended that campaign?
I do have a sheet for, I know who signed up, who came to the
You
campaign.
do or don't have
I
a
do
sheet
have,
with names and addresses?
yes.
And that, but that was not identified in any of your.
No, I didn't think I had to do a report. I didn't take in over $2,000. So again, I did this in kind because my last attorney said I should do it in kind. But so then it was done last minute. Yes, it wasn't, it wasn't as efficient. I agree that it wasn't efficient.
So Ms. D'Angelo, you just testified your last attorney told you the 350 should be in kind or the $104 from Mr. Carson should be in kind?
No, Scott Dasher told me I should put the anonymous. for
Okay,
the
I
free-
misheard you. I thought you said you were.
Yeah, no, my attorney said I should do, I'm sorry, I said in kind, good faith. In good faith, I should file this, and that's all I did, in good faith.
Okay,
It
so,
was last minute, and as far as I can see, from a business point of view, it's sloppy. I mean, there's some things that need to be fixed, yeah.
Okay.
If you want me to fix them, I can fix them easily. I mean, dates are wrong, but I'm not malicious. I am not trying to go and like take in more money or spend more money. I was trying to make this a very shoestring kind of situation. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not a criminal. To tell you, this is a little crazy, but sorry. Emoting.
just, so it's my understanding you'll be moving back the Terry Carson $104. You're going to be moving back to the in-kind column according to your lawyer's opening statement.
Yes.
Okay, well, given the limitation that this board has restricted me to based upon my affidavit, and without waiving the right to amend, I would suggest that the amended filing by Ms. D'Angelo, if this commission looks at the amounts, contributions and expenditures far exceed the waiver amount, and therefore she was in violation, therefore she was obligated to file the pre-election report, the post-election report, annual report. The pre-election report by October 15th, 2023. The post-election report by December 15th, I believe, 2023. And the annual report, the last day of January 2023, which she didn't. And I guess other than that, all the other information, I guess, see when they amended.
Madam Chair, one brief question. Council, how do you arrive at your amount and what is the exact amount that you believe is appropriate that the contributions and expenditures include.
Looking at Exhibit A, tab 4, Mr. Kirschner, the total amount set forth in Miss D'Angelo's filing is $2,028.28 regarding in-kind contributions and actual monetary contributions, which she testified she received all well in advance or on October 1st, 2023. Also, although she identifies in her report, her amended report, as outstanding debts 1803, Ms. D'Angelo testified that these were actually monies that she contributed for campaign activities. If I understand the commission in its previous cases, that is an expenditure that she had to identify, and certainly both of those, all of them collectively far exceed $2,000. But even if you take the contributions, the total contributions she received of monetary and in-kind, not her math at the bottom of the page, you just add them up on your own, you come to $2,028.58.
And that comprises your Exhibit A, tab 4, pages 2 through what?
For the entire document. Oh, for the in-kind, for the total contributions,
Correct.
that includes Exhibit A, tab 4, page 2, 3, 4, the cash 5, 6, which is erroneously marked as $68, actually $108, 7. So those pages.
And you believe that those, I came up with a different number, but you believe those numbers, pages 2 through 7 of Exhibit A, tab 4 equal $2,028.28?
58 cents.
58 cents. And that includes the adjustment
Of $40 that was not added in down.
of 68 to 108.
Correct. That is ignoring the expenditures that,
Do you agree that and I'm asking, I don't know here, on the bottom right of pages 2 through 7, do those numbers otherwise accurately reflect the expenditures?
the answer is most of them. If you notice on page 2, I'll tell you what you did, because I did it. I made the same error when I was doing it the first time. You added 350 twice. Okay. So on page 2, Miss D'Angelo listed her cash, the check of 500, the 150 and 350. That's the cash she received, that she testified she received on October 1st. Okay.
Yeah.
You turn the page. These contributions add up. You add those up. So page 3.
Yeah.
Page 4. You would ignore page 5 because you've already added the $350.
Okay, that's because I came up with like
Yeah,
2379.
yeah, I did the
Okay.
same thing.
All right.
And
So
then
you're just over $2,000.
just over $2,000. But yes, putting aside the other violations, which I'll bring up at another time if I'm forced to.
Okay, so removing that, then you end up with, again, just for my records, $2,028.58, and that comprises Exhibit A, tab 4, pages 2 through 7.
Correct.
And for clarity, that is not what the 104 or 108, whatever that number was.
That includes the 108.
It doesn't clear.
That includes the updated amount
Yes,
to 108. $2,028.58. That excludes the 350 on which page? Because it was double counted,
correct.
but it includes the increase on the page Gerald Matzik.
Correct.
Page 6.
Yes, that includes the increase from 68 to 108.
Correct. and completely ignores the expenditures set forth in the other page.
And just for sake of clarity, so that we can take notice of this, at least from that perspective and that math, Attorney Colombo, do you agree that math, including those revisions, equals that $2,028.58? Or do you have any objection to that?
I do object to that, and the math I came up with, and we could go through it, is it's close to 1,900 with the two adjustments. Because her report here, I guess her starting point's 1803.11, right on page, this is exhibit 4, page 1.
Exhibit A, tab 4, page 1.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien, do we agree that's what the numbers would add up to?
As far as the numbers you saying that Ms. D'Angelo's expenditures,
Or just based on what the page
No,
is
I'm-
attached?
the 1803.11 purports to be what Ms. D'Angelo expended on behalf of her campaign.
Right, so, but that appears to be the right number there, right?
Appears to be from
At least from
remaining
what
pages.
the pages are, yeah,
Correct.
yeah, I'm not asking, so my math is you take the 1803.11. You remove the 104, which. 1803.11, and this is debt again, not expenditures. The 104 was improperly listed as debt. Because she never paid anything she's not expected to. So you take out the $104. Then you take out, if you bear with me, we did acknowledge that the mailer was more expensive than reported, and that's going to be amended. We had put, or I'm sorry, she had put,
Mr. Colombo, can you identify the page?
yeah, just trying to figure out what page number it is. Okay, so it's the very last page of the whole packet, actually. So 217.11 was reported on postage. And we're gonna then add in the correct number, which was
434.22.
Are you saying you're gonna add in the correct number of postage?
for those 4 receipts, the carbon copy receipts were the postage spent.
Right, but she's purporting that Ms. Kopp paid for half.
Oh, yeah, but she did pay $400 some.
She put in her affidavit that Ms. Kopp and her shared that. Are you saying that now?
Yeah, I said that in my opening statement. What was, if I may, commissioners, just help add clarification. So again, one thing to keep in mind, these expenditures happened well over a year ago at this point. You had 2 candidates doing a joint mailer. Ms. D'Angelo had receipts of 434.22. Her memory when she did the report is that 434.22 was split in half. But actually what happened upon reviewing the records again is she actually paid the full 434.22. And Babel on her own paid like $575. So it's about $1,000 of postage, which sounds about right. So yeah, I acknowledged in the opening statement, this is something, as we really drill down the numbers, 434.22 should have been reported there and will be on the amended report. So if you don't mind, let me just grab my calculator.
May I ask why that number wasn't split in half if it was a joint mailer?
I think it dealt, Commissioner, with one, Ms. D'Angelo is running for trustee, and it didn't include the whole district of
Bainbridge.
Babel ran for a different office that included more different boundaries. So more, whatever amount they did, you know,
But with all due respect, that's not the affidavit you're holding me to the standard of, I was aware of this on 5/16. And you're not holding her to the same standard. She filed an affidavit with this board.
Madam Chair, if I could interject, I want to get us back on track in this sense. I just asked what the math was I wanted to see if Mr. Colombo would acknowledge or agree. It seems that he doesn't. So I think the proper course now, unless you have any other questions, would be for Mr. Colombo to proceed with his witness testimony. These issues can certainly be wrapped up in closing. I just wanted to arrive at the number. In other words, I wanted to see if we had an acknowledgement that it exceeded $2,000. It seems that there may be a dispute. But to the complainant, I just want to understand, you're at $2,028.58 from your perspective. Is that right?
From what she's put in the reports, yes.
Okay.
But I would like to show you that it's possibly more. And that's the whole point of asking this commission to seek, and which it's, I believe it's in its power to seek her bank accounts and information. And it's without knowledge of this recent change.
Do you, counsel, have any further questions?
I do. Ms. D'Angelo,
Madam Chair, your thoughts on whether you may proceed.
thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes, Commissioner.
since we're dealing with numbers, I don't want to get confused. I just want to make sure that I'm following Mr. O'Brien, so I have this correct. So you, correct me if I'm wrong, please. So when you gave us the numbers, you said tab 4, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, and page 7 with the math. Is that correct? And then exclude page 5?
We are, just for clarification, so we are dealing with rows 6 and 7 on page 1 of Exhibit A, page 4, and what those two amounts total in the actual report, not what she put on page 1. And so I would submit to you that the total of all contributions are found on page 2,
Right,
3,
right,
4,
have it,
5.
right.
On page 6, not the amount she put at the bottom, but $104 or $108 because you have to add the 40 that it was omitted.
108, okay.
Why is 108 on page 6?
On page 6, you have 3 entries of in-kind receivables.
Just the actual math gets to 108.
Yes. Ms. D'Angelo wrote $68. It's actually 108, which bumps it up beyond the 2,000.
Okay, I'm with you now because my math,
It's 40, 23, and
Yeah.
is that 75?
45.
It's 45.
okay. Because if you just do the math on the bottom, I did it twice and I was getting $1,988.58.
Right, you gotta add 40
So
to it.
you're adding, okay, I'm with you. I just want to make sure I was following along with you.
Which were all received October 1st and earlier, but based upon the testimony.
Okay.
Page 2,
You're
3,
clear.
4, 5, 108 on page 6 and page 7.
But you take out the page 5.
Correct.
That's what he said.
All right.
Okay, so it's 2, 3, 4,
All right, let me, so
6
everybody,
for 108 and 7.
Correct.
All right, very good. Are you
There's
gentlemen,
Bud.
you gentlemen clear?
I'm clear on something. I don't know if it's right or not. to be frank, but-
All right, do you have
Madam
any,
Chair, thank
any
you.
other additional questions?
No, ma'am.
just,
Okay, very good. Proceed.
Ms. D'Angelo, turn to, complaints exhibit C, please. Ms. D'Angelo, can you explain to the commission what, these carbon receipts?
These are, I have duplicate checks, and so this is the duplicate.
Yes, are these from your
copy.
personal checking account?
Yes,
Did you ever establish a checking account for the, Sally? Let me finish.
Sally D'Angelo,
Yes. Did you ever establish a checking account for your committee?
yes,
Did you ever use any of the checks for your committee?
No.
So, can you explain to the committee what these four UPS that I
For the
received from your
mailing.
previous lawyer? For the mailing of
Yes.
exhibit V?
yes.
And is it fair to say that you mailed them using the every door delivery mailing
Yes,
offered by the US Postal Service?
yes,
So is it a fair statement to say these 4 expenditures were for 4 zones within Bainbridge Township?
but with Mabel, yes. I mean, she paid, okay, so she was out of country and she just got back in I just got a hold of her a couple of days ago and called her and just to clarify, with Mr. Colombo, that the cost of the mailing, I was under the impression that I split this with Mabel because I'm not paying attention to bulk mailing rates.
Mhm.
So, but Mabel did pay her own 500 and something. We just found that out. That's what he said. We're going to do an amended report because we found out that Mabel did pay 575. I thought we split this. I knew we split the mailing. So when I had, so I spent 434.22.
Contrary to your affidavit that you filed in May.
Yes, because
It
I
was-
just found that out, yes.
And when was Ms. Cop out of the country?
This be in spring, and she came back in, but she wasn't feeling well, so she wasn't returning my phone calls.
Oh.
And I just got a hold of her yesterday,
Okay,
actually, so I just talked to her.
okay. Yeah, it gets kind of confusing. Everything's moving around. Now, I guess given the limitations, Mr. Richter, I can feel your zest to get done with this. Given the limitation that this commission has held me to based upon my complaint, I have no further questions.
Very good.
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. D'Angelo, I have very few questions for you, but I just want to clarify if when you add together how much debt your committee incurred, does your math still show it's under 2,000? Okay. And you can arrive at that math 2 different ways for the commissioners. You could take the 180311 in the campaign finance report. So when you amend the report, do you plan to remove $104 that was reported as a debt and switch it to in-kind?
Yes,
And just to be clear, you put it as a debt with the assistance of a Geauga County board providing you info on what to list, right?
right.
But have you ever gotten an invoice for that $104?
No,
Did Mr. Carson explain that to you that this would be an in-kind?
I think he mentioned it, but I'm new at this.
No.
So I was following whatever, people told me to put.
Yep.
Doing it.
So you'll take off the 104 off that debt and move it to an in-kind.
Right,
Okay, the other adjustment that needs to be made to that 180311 is you are going to essentially take off the 21711 that was reported for the postage, correct?
Right.
And you're now going to add in 434.22.
yes,
So after those 2 adjustments, does this sound correct to you based on, you've run the math, that there is $1,916.22 in debt?
yes.
Okay. So let me just ask you this. Was I correct in saying you're a first-time candidate?
Yes.
Have you ever been a treasurer before?
No,
Were you trying to comply with the law?
yes,
Were you trying to be sneaky in any way on how you put this report together?
no,
Let me just look at my notes. So as you sit here today, at some point then you'll take the money that's you did have a separate bank account for your campaign committee.
Yes.
Okay. And at some point you will reimburse yourself for the expenses you had.
yes.
Okay. I don't believe I have any other questions.
Ms. D'Angelo, you just testified that you're going to make a change. Where originally in Exhibit A dash tab 3, where you filed your Ohio campaign finance report on 510, you listed Mr. Carson 104 as in kind, correct?
Yeah, right,
But then from 10 to 15, right before the preliminary hearing, you filed an amended campaign report for the limited purpose of moving the 104 from in-kind to now an obligation or payment by you, correct?
Right.
Did Mr. Carson, why did you do that?
Like I said, I was getting information from a lot of different people, and I conferred with someone. I have a friend who was a treasurer, and she had said, I think that would be an in-depth, so I just changed it. If it could be wrong.
You're,
It's
I'm
probably
sorry,
wrong at this
you're
point.
saying you talked with people and you think it would be an in-kind?
No, it is the in-kind. I was right in the beginning, and Mr. Dasher gave me that information, and I should have kept with that.
Uh-huh.
But
But you,
I heard from someone else, that, no, that would be an
who did you
in-depth.
hear from?
Just a friend.
Just a friend. You don't know this friend's name?
No, I do. Don't want to say her name. Like, I mean, why do I have to say it? It's a friend who gave me information.
I'm gonna ask you to provide that friend's name.
I would just object if it's not.
Why? It comes, Madam Chairman, Chairwoman, if you indulge me. If you could turn to Exhibit H, if everybody can turn to Exhibit H, and I'll show why this 104 amendment was changed. This is an email that was sent to Mr. Richter and his staff by Ms. D'Angelo's former counsel, and then it was forwarded on to me, Exhibit H. Everybody on the same page? Yep. It's an email from Terry Carson to the Bruner Law Office and explains why the work that he did was an in-kind contribution. And he spoke to Sally
He said
that it was in kind. May 3rd, prior to her filing the May 10th Ohio Finance Report. Ms. D'Angelo would have you believe that within 5 days, she moved it. I would just ask this board, because it's in front of them, just to do the math on the May 10th submission to Geauga County. It's clear that the only reason to move it from 104 from in-kind to an obligation is Ms. D'Angelo thought that it would bring her under the 2,000, because even in tab 3, if you do the math, and I won't not put everybody through that misery, even if you do the actual math, unless you move that 104 to in-kind, and her thinking that it wasn't a contribution, or it was an in-kind contribution, it was an obligation, she'd still be over the 2,000. I'm just telling you that there's a lot of smoke here. And if all I have to do is come before this board, provide an affidavit sworn to you under testimony, and then change it when they get excellent legal counsel, then you're right. Perhaps, maybe, I should have brought it in the first place. That's all.
Are there any commissioners or any conversation?
Madam Chair. Couple of questions. If I may, Ms. D'Angelo,
yes.
I'm gonna ask our court reporter if she can to go back, a little ways. We talked about these carbon copy checks.
Yes.
I believe the complainant asked you if you had written any checks from your campaign committee.
Right.
Is that, did I ask you, or did he ask you that earlier?
Yes.
And you responded no.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
But then I heard that there were deposits made into the campaign committee
Right.
account.
I haven't written any checks from them. It's just the campaign money's still sitting there. It's just sitting in the Friends of Sally D'Angelo bank account. It's sitting there.
Okay. So you accepted these contributions, put them in your campaign account,
Right.
and then you have never expended
Right.
any of them.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions of the commissioners? Thank you, Ms. D'Angelo. Okay. All right. including the presentation of both the complainant and the respondent. Is there any further conversation or dialogue of this commission? Commissioner.
May permit. Argue.
Absolutely. Okay, gentlemen.
First of all, let me apologize on the delay of marking exhibits and on the fact that apparently this board will only entertain what's on the complaint. But let me say this, board, there are no receipts, no canceled checks, nothing that should go in a campaign report that's before this board with the original filed, albeit woefully late, after my complaint was filed on May 10th, and then the amended how financial report on May 15th. Nothing. It's all numbers that have been moving around every time someone presents a different fact, and then to adjust those numbers to fit the narrative. And that would be fine if that was the preliminary. That would be fine if someone didn't file an affidavit after engaging apparently another law firm to represent them. And after that law firm presenting that affidavit to this board, if the board's just going to ignore that, okay, at the very least, should be questions here to obtain the actual documents, the actual receipts, where nobody can subjectively change them after the fact. But at the most, I think we've shown as painstakingly as it was, that if you just do the simple, your own calculations on what was filed by Ms. DeLangelo, and if you take her testimony that she received all contributions, her expenditures, all of that was done well in advance of the time she had to file the pre-report and the post-report and the annual report. She's in violation of the relevant statute if you're just going to limit me to my complaint. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Respondent, your closing statements.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Thanks for your patience this morning, afternoon now. I'm not sure what time it is. I try not to just repeat my opening statement, but a couple of points I want to say in closing is that, yeah, I have a great deal of respect for Mr. O'Brien, but just in closing, I do want to say the allegation is what this commission's limited to. Being a quasi-judicial body, certainly in a criminal trial, you wouldn't never imagine that you would take information taken from a hearing and say, well, let's also charge this defendant with 2 or 3 other things that have come out. Let's do it during the trial. Let's do it during the hearing. So the allegation is $2,000 in expenditures. My math for the record, after extensively reviewing this, is Sally DeAngelo's committee has debt of $1,916.22. So even if those were expenditures, $2,000 was not exceeded. So that did not trigger the reporting requirement. Couple other points in closing. Again, this is, to me at least, highly unusual that we're fast tracking something that the Geauga County Board would typically audit a report, review it. If they think there's gaps or dates missing or receipts missing, they send an audit letter. The committee has 21 days. We've taken it straight to the Ohio Election Commission to dissect a first-time candidate's report and whether it crossed the $2,000 threshold. Sally DeAngelo does have some financial experience, but campaign finance reports are their own beast. In-kind, expenditures, all these different terms we take for granted. We know them. They're part of our language. She did her best she could to file an accurate report, which she only did as a result of this complaint. I guess no good deed goes unpunished, but to show her hand and yeah, there were 1 or 2 mistakes, but a lot of campaign reports have 1 or 2 mistakes, and that's why there's an amendment process. It wasn't malicious. Wasn't trying to be sneaky. As to one exhibit, I want to address this exhibit H. So this was back on May 3rd. I mean, it says right in the email is an in-kind contribution. So that's how it should be reported. someone, whoever talked to Sally D'Angelo, convinced her, no, go and put that as a debt you owe. But there's been no invoice. The email itself says it's an in-kind. This email actually supports our position. It should have been reported as an in-kind, as indicated by the person who spent money on ink and paper. But, Ms. D'Angelo did her best to interpret the terminology, to report what needed to be reported. Again, the preliminary review was in May. There's been 6 months that have passed. All these documents you've seen today have been in existence since May, for nearly 6 months. So there was time to do discovery. There was time to amend the complaint, but that didn't happen. So again, our interpretation is this is debt. Again, well, first of all, did not go above 2,000 in expenditures, and they weren't even committee expenditures. They're debt. For that reason, also, the complaint is insufficient. We would ask for the commission to dismiss this case. Thank you.
Thank you for your closing statement. Members of the commission, are there any questions for each other, any conversation that you might want to have?
Madam Chair, I think, if I may just make a couple of comments briefly. Part of what troubles me about this is this commission during the preliminary review process, there was an affidavit sworn that was inaccurate. It wasn't accurate. Multiple parts of it don't appear to me to be accurate. The argument of we are going to amend our report respectfully, and we work towards compliance here. We don't have that amended report today. So Ms. D'Angelo as a candidate signed a piece of paper with the Geauga County Board of Elections that basically say this is true and accurate. And it's very clear that the report was not true or accurate. I also want to make a brief comment, Mr. Richter, and I apologize that I'm not going to remember when, but there was a very specific matter that we had before the commission in which you told us, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that 3517, if there's a matter before this commission that we do see that a candidate or someone before us is in violation, that we can find them in violation, regardless of whether or not it is in the complaint. And I respect your argument as well. So back to the campaign finance report, the future or to be amended, we don't have that information to rely on. I do respect the fact that Ms. D'Angelo is a first-time candidate. With that does come a responsibility to do your due diligence in making sure that you are providing accurate information for the public, and the people of Ohio deserve to see that, particularly your constituents. And so I just wanted to make my, put that on the record, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Very good. Thank you. Any other members?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I would just like to say, as it relates to Mr. Colombo's argument as well, I think that one of our primary tenets is fairness to the parties. And I think that notice and an opportunity to defend oneself is important. And so we did not necessarily limit matters to the complaint. The complaint was presented as it was for us to consider. Opportunities to amend, revise, and update certainly are ample. We've been very generous and lenient about those things. I would also say that while I believe we're limited in many senses to the four corners of the complaint, based upon fairness to the parties and the opportunity to defend and prepare against those claims, that we also maintain the ability to continue this hearing if we prefer, to conduct additional discovery. Mr. Richter could correct me if I'm wrong. If we have any areas that we are concerned about or want to explore further, I believe we as a commission have the ability to continue the hearing, conduct additional discovery, and those sorts of things. But as it relates to today's arguments, I think it would be unfair to require someone to address this commission without having the opportunity of notice or to prepare coming in here for those types of issues. Mr. Richter, I don't know if you have any comments about that.
Well, once a case has been presented to the commission in a context such as this, we can hold a final determination for 30 days. But so a determination must be made within 30 days afterwards, so we could accept, we do whatever we want, well, not whatever we want to do, but we can withhold final judgment for that period of time. So that's one option that we would have available to us. One thing I would say though is with due respect to what I said earlier and to Mr. Colombo's arguments, I would agree with Mr. Caraway in terms of what the four corners of the complaint is certainly what we have before us, and it made reference to the $2,000 expenditure. But it's my belief if the commission, as a part of the process, sees a violation of the statutes that are within our jurisdiction, I believe that the commission can make a finding in a situation such as that. Because that's the allegation is there has been a violation of, X section, whatever that section of law is. And so I believe that we have before us the evidence that we have and the statute, and could make a determination as we believe appropriate.
Very well.
Any additional dialogue,
I
gentlemen?
have a
Please.
question. So
Yeah, sure.
I'm very confused
Commissioner Knight
now.
first.
I believe there was an objection around that was sustained around only being limited to the four corners of the complaint. And now,
By the executive director.
and yes, and now I'm hearing that we can find violations where we want. These are diametrically opposed viewpoints. And I certainly tried my best to stay in the four corners based on the sustainment of that objection. I guess I'm confused about where we're at, right? Are we within the four corners, which was sustained, or are we not?
Commissioner Lau, may I?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I agree. I have similar experience, feelings over the matter, but I would say that we do have the full purview to consider all things included, and maybe that directs us to say a continuance is in order. Getting into compliance is in order. Our goal essentially always is compliance, so allotting the time period for that to come into place and or other parties to pursue the necessary information and allow the necessary time frame for all interested parties to do their homework may be most appropriate.
So if I may, I 100% agree. However, that compliance looks different based on whether or not the respondent was expended more or less than 2,000, right? If it's more, then there's a whole series of reports that need to be filed. And if it's not, really just cleaning up the waiver forms that were submitted is all. So the compliance is different based on the view of whether more than 2,000 was spent, which we haven't. I mean, we have two different opinions and we all probably have our own view of it, but we've not concluded whether that has happened or not yet.
If I may, Madam Chair, Commissioner Knight, you bring up an excellent point. And I want to make sure that my thinking is in line with the law. Mr. Richter, it has always been my general sense of understanding that an in-kind contribution is in fact a contribution, regardless of what in-kind versus hard dollar. An in-kind contribution of, let's say, $500 is a contribution of $500. They're not imaginary. They don't get to be counted against the aggregate. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Say that again, please.
An in-kind contribution, let's say it's, a candidate is given a $500 in-kind contribution for something to do with their campaign. Isn't that a contribution? I mean, it's an in-kind and it goes in the aggregate of campaign finance limits. So let me package it a different way. Let's say that candidates for the Ohio General Assembly, the contribution limit is $15,000 even. It's weird. It's some odd number. Let's say it's $15,000 even. And a contributor were to give you $14,000 and then $1,200 in an in-kind, they would be $200 over the contribution limit. Probably made that more complicated than it needed to be. My question again is, isn't an in-kind contribution a contribution that counts against the aggregate of the contribution limits?
Contribution, in-kind and contributions are defined differently under the statutes, under 351701. There's a separate definition, and here under 351710K, it just talks about contributions. In-kind contributions aren't necessarily included in there, in the specific reading of 351710K.
Okay.
Matt, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Caraway.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyle. So, Mr. Richter, I want to make sure I'm really informed and educated, because my line of thinking was a little differently, and if what you're telling me is accurate, and I don't necessarily have a reason to doubt that what you're telling me is accurate, I'll need to see that in writing if I can, to make an informed decision. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that point. And actually to echo that concern, so what would be the limitation then on in-kind contributions, if at all, if it's not accounted for and considered in this context?
I can only, interpret the statute that is, in the way it's written. We never had this brought up to us before. But what it says is, candidate, et cetera, testing that the committee will not accept contributions. Contributions are defined under 351701. During an election period, that exceed in the aggregate $2,000 from all contributors and $100 from any one individual. That's what the statute says. And
Is the in-kind also defined as an in-kind contribution?
351701, an in-kind contribution is defined separately.
If I could, Madam Chair.
And I'm sorry.
I think we might be able to move this along a bit because I am concerned about Mr. Caraway's inquiry as well. And I don't want to muddle through it here on fly as we review the statute. My suggestion would be that we do in fact continue the matter for 30 days as we consider the matter and allow for the parties to issue post-hearing briefs on this issue or other issues that they may wish to raise for us to review. And Madam Chair, if I could, I would suggest that those post-hearing briefs be submitted within the next 14 days so that we could digest them and Mr. Richter's opinion and be able to issue our decision within that 30-day time period.
Madam Chair, so I'm sorry, I had a question before Mr. Kirschner. I just want to make sure I'm clear on this also. And it piggybacks on what Mr. Caraway was asking. Because it seems to me the difference, and maybe we can get some clarification here from the two councils, but was on, had one of my previous questions when I did the math. So I'm looking at tab 4, page 6. The respondent had put down $68. And the complainant says that should be 108. And that seems to me, that's the crux of the matter here. Is that what we're dealing with?
I believe that was acknowledged by the way.
Right? Right, so then if in-kind is separate from a contribution, I'm not sure.
If I could,
Well, I'm not-
Chair, you'd have to include the in-kind contributions to the regular contributions to get over the $2,000 limit.
No, I understand that. But I'm saying, based on what Mr. Richter just said, it seems to me that the 108 would not be the figure you'd use the 68. Which gets us, I did the math twice, I think it was $1,988. Is that correct?
Back 40, you'll be at,
$1,988.58.
yeah.
Right? So then, Mr. Richter, I know we've done this ad nauseum, but if we have a report that is under $2,000, there then is no requirement, correct, to file a report. Is that accurate?
I believe that to be accurate. Yes.
Okay. So if if the respondent truly believed she was under $2,000, she wouldn't have a requirement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
For all.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kirschner, but that was the question I wanted to ask prior to what you had
No, fair enough.
stated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. And as much as it pains me because we are not at a state of being settled, we are going to, I believe even without the full body of the commission, I'm going to go ahead and issue a continuance on this case. Please be in communication with the executive director and staff on appropriate scheduling and next steps.
That's within your purview.
Yes, yes, yes. And I apologize. Commissioner has a hard out at 1 p.m. So that puts a time limit on for us as well. Is there any other additional business of the commission at this point?
Other than, Madam Chair, so I heard Mr. Kirschner, so based on giving a continuance, so what is, it just means we're going to reconvene again, or are there parameters for the both councils, or where are we at with that?
I would advise that they reach out to the executive director and staff
Okay, good.
according.
That's all. I just wanted some instructions. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I may, as long as the commission agrees, I would like a memo sent to the commission so that we can unpack the in-kind. So I would like for the chair to direct Mr. Richter to come up with a memo for us to be able to better understand the in-kind portion of our discussion today.
Thank you, Commissioner, Executive Director. If you and team staff would be so kind as to issue a memo to the full commission to help us better understand and maybe even provide some precedent or context that might help us to know we're in good standing. Thank you so much.
Last thing, if I could, and I know that folks have a heart out, but I want to make sure if I'm counsel, I want to know where things stand. It's my understanding that we'll have a continuous issue a decision. The matter is fully and finally submitted. We'll have a continuous to issue a decision, though I want to make sure that the commission is comfortable with allowing the parties to issue post-hearing briefs for us to consider with any issues they may have. And then we can also coordinate with our counsel on the final decision. But we would not convene again. We would just issue our decision based upon the hearing today. Is that agreeable?
I believe that to be the case.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult.
No,
Well, that's not what
That's not what
the chair said. The chair said we would have another date. I mean, I
Oh,
don't
are
care which one we do, but that's not what the chair.
Right, given the uncertainty of the members, I would assume that we could have an extension of this deliberation, in which case perhaps there could be additional information presented at that time. And if I'm misunderstanding procedural allowance, that is fine, but I think there's a division of opinion even within this body on what is necessary to proceed forward to allow the full extent of this commission to do its job.
You know, I appreciate you letting me, I do appreciate the commissioner's question, because I think there is a difference between the deliberation date is just extended 30 days for the commission. That's a very different than, let's come back with more exhibits. And, you know, we've made closing statements. We've presented all our exhibits. So at least I'd like to know, is a thought just the commission will utilize the 30 days allowed to issue its decision. So do like the parties have to come back, you know, that type of thing.
Madam Chair, if I should, I think that we have enough information. The matter has been solidified. Once we get this memo from the executive director, because what we're dealing with is about $100 on one side or $23 on the other. I think we have enough evidence in this documentation to be able to determine, you know, for or against this within 30 days. I believe that's where we are.
Okay, well, if the opinion of the commission is that we are going to roll on the complaint as submitted, exclusively as submitted, then that is appropriate. And I would recommend that if there are other issues, that those be pursued accordingly and that everyone would seek compliance in the interim as well. So we will issue an opinion upon receiving information in a memo that allows us to be fully educated without concern or question. of that
Not-
matter.
Not to further complicate this, but, you know, not that I have any issue with what's proposed, but, you know, I've been here almost 3 years to the day. We've never followed this procedurally. So, and more of a question for the executive director. I believe sunshine laws require us to physically meet and deliberate to make that decision. So right now, we have November 21st, which my Uber math skills tell me is under 30 days. And then the next one isn't until, I think, mid-December, which my Uber math skills tell me is greater than 30 days. So are we going to call an extra meeting just to deliberate and vote? Or can we have an online version? I think
No.
the governor said we cannot. So are we going to call us back just to make one decision?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Knight, for your concern and question about transparency.